And for some people, some of us that are, we work with the intellect a lot. When it starts, especially if you've not had much experience with it, the analytical mind just won't stop. Oh, what about that color? What about that shape? Is that in the light? Is that in my brain? Is this good for me? Do I like this? Do I not like this? How long does it last? Is it about a minute? That's like in the first 3 seconds. You've got about 9 things that you're thinking about, even as the session begins. So there is an attempt to minimize that by doing like a bow, right? Something that is surprising, something that has the high probability of letting you not do all the stuff you're normally doing so that you're present. You arrive. Boom. It's like when Petty walked in the door, I said, hey, boom, right? That's an attentional state, because you were all thinking about different things. You may not have noticed that, the superhero pyro DJ walked in the room, right? But he did, right? It's okay, I'll cut you down later on, Petty. You build them up, then you cut them down. You see how well they roll when they fall, huh? All right. I can talk like that because his dad's my friend, right? He won't beat me up later on.
Bring it on, man.
Bring it on, see? Bring it on. That's the first thing that happens. But if that state continues too long, the individual shifts away from paying attention, that alerted state. They become alert, but if it keeps on going and it doesn't make sense, depending on the individual, there's a tendency that they shift into vigilance. And vigilance is like, oh, wait a minute, maybe something bad is happening. I don't know if it's good or bad, but maybe it's bad. It's this vigilant state. And once they get into isn't it getting hot in here, or I'm just like pumped up? Okay, let's, there's a sliding door. Lift the curtain up about 2 feet and then open it so we get screen in here. And you can crack the back door for some air. It's okay. It's terrible when you're in here and it starts to get hot, and then you only had like 3 coffees, then you start to go to sleep. So. No, not like that.
Well, there we go.
There you go. Stop. And then there's a door with glass. The lever is sticky. It'll open if you're nice. Oh, you're not that nice. All right. And get it open. Anyway, so the first thing that you do is toss in an unpredictable, unexpected combination of signals, just enough to create an alerted state and stop doing what you were doing. But if you stay with that too long, it creates a vigilant state. There's the potential of threat, and now you've got this threatened, I don't know, dubious, cautious attitude that works against you. So you've got to be careful. There you go. You've got to be careful how long you do that. And the lower the person's neuroplastic capacity, the shorter the time. So it's not just the degree of complexity, it's the duration of the time. Because they'll get on guard, they'll get threatened, the nonsense is going to be uncomfortable, and they slide into a negative disposition that now you have to dig out of that hole. As soon as you get attention, this is in compositional systems theory, compositional talk. What you do is you introduce the prime attractor. The main signal, the main state, the main subject that you want to build around, that's when they get introduced. It's like if it's a movie, boom, the main character gets introduced at that point. It's like, oh, it's all about John Wick, number 2, that is not as good as number 1. Right? So it's called the prime attractor. And the prime attractor are frequency and frequency collections and frequency sequences. And this is all derived from the long history of brain research that's been done since the early 60s. I didn't make these things up. That if it's, for example, for Joan, we ran a session called After Trauma. There are well-known corresponding brain states that correspond with those mind states, and they're related to particular frequencies. Not just like, 11.5, it's the holy one. They're usually families of frequencies. And it isn't just that it's a family, it's the same notes, but you can bend them to different chords, and you can move in and out a little bit, but the main kind of the key, and a few of the main chords that are going to be the signature of this song. He's a guitarist, so that's why I keep on looking at Robert, right? So what I do, having done the research, I know that if a person is in a sensitized state after trauma, and I want to set a stage, number one, so they can have some good feeling right now, but number two, set things up so that I could develop a program. I know that certain frequency sets that do that. And I didn't discover them. They were discovered by many people over time in many different places, most all of them confirmed. So as soon as I do the scramble your eggs, as soon as I do what's called technically a control interrupt, when I do the control interrupt that stops you from doing what you're doing, immediately before vigilance comes in, I introduce the prime attractor, the main signaling, the signature sense or tone or chord structure of that tune. The one you're going to return to in the chorus, for example, boom, it's introduced. And because when there's a big boom, 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 cognitively, what happens? You want to know what it is. I say, don't worry, that's just the dog knocking over the lamp. Oh, okay. It's not some, badass thief with an Uzi breaking through the door. No, it's just the dog knocking over the lamp. So that alerted state, what it wants more than anything is making sense out of nonsense. It wants to know, what is this weird thing that just happened? So right at that point, you say, it's just the dog again. You say, okay. In this case, I interject the frequency family set that I know deals well with after trauma mind states. So now you got him. You hook the fish. And then you stay with that, you work that for a while, and as soon as it has kind of a momentum, then you introduce what's called the secondary attractors. You're bringing in the signals that are the buddies, the family, the chords, the notes, the harmonics that work well with that. And they like each other, they stick with each other. And now you got the brain, and the brain's going with you. And you say, okay, this is fine, fantastic. And some of you know what I'm going to say now, that if you're writing the script for a movie, or even if it's a tune, but especially the analogy for the movie, you've already established a tone, a theme. You've already identified 2 or 3 of the main characters. What's got to happen to make this interesting?
Conflict.
Yeah, you've got to introduce some conflict. Because by introducing conflict, you get to see more deeply the actual nature of that character. You get to sense more about the effect of these frequency states because you challenge them. So there's some, there's discord, there's conflict, there's challenge. And what that does is I can, like the balance beam thing. You say, okay, and you walk over and you got one on either side and you tap them on the shoulder. Then you tap them on the other shoulder. And you say, would you stop screwing with me? He said, no, just feel what that's like. You challenge, you create conflict. This theme is used extensively at University of Wisconsin with the PONS device. Capital P, small o, capital N, capital S, PONS. I know it's a part of the brain, but they've been developing this thing for 15 years. I am so charged. They still aren't commercializing it. They're almost there. I keep bothering them. And by chance, the first Dragon Herbs public event that we had, the guy showed up that is actually the funding agent, element, entity behind the commercialization of the PONS unit. So, yeah, capital P, small o, capital N, capital S. It's an acronym for something I forget now. But what they do, it's a thing that grows on your tongue. And it's electrical. but it's right at threshold sensation. So it's not like, oh, wow, you don't even notice that it's electrical. And they've worked with all sorts of signal sets. They've worked with random sets. They've worked with predictable sets. They've come up with a frequency set that is optimizing. They put it on the tongue. And because the tongue is the earliest evolutionarily developed sense organ, that it's always probing, it's reaching out. You can see, so many animals, whether they're using it for thermal, like a snake, or touching and tasting, or your 6-month-old, where everything goes in the mouth. What's that? That the tongue has the neural connection to the central nervous system that goes straight into the brain stem. The beginning of where the spinal cord begins to turn into the brain stem, that's the tongue neurology. That's why the tongue is so amazing. Right? Because it's right into, more primitive than the reptilian brain. It's like the brain just becoming the brain. And it feeds right directly there. So what they do, and there's a variety of these things, it's non-vectorial. There's no vector. So they have to provide the vectors. You put it on the tongue, and these are people that will come in with canes, or they have to be held, for example, because they've lost all the vestibular balance. Let's say they have bacterial infections or something happened. When they close their eyes, they fall over. Because we use vestibular with our eyes. That's why the whole motion car sick thing, right? The two don't match, and you feel. Bleh. So these people have lost the vestibular. Unless their eyes are open, they can't have balance. They close their eyes, they fall over. So they come in, and they put them there, and they put this thing on their tongue. This is just one example, and this thing has been going on for 15 years. They've refined it so well. Now it's almost on the verge of being consumed. It'll be expensive. But, so they say, okay, put this thing on your tongue, right? And they have somebody on either side of them. They say, okay, close your eyes. They close their eyes, and they start, and the person on one side or the other, they just tap their shoulder. Like, no. And you start to go that way, no. Or, of course, front and back, so you can do like that, right? And what the device does is it floods into the brain's complexity and creates this neutral state. There's no vector, there's no teaching in it, but it makes the brain wide open for learning. And frequently, within 20 minutes, this person is standing there by themselves, eyes closed, perfectly balanced and stable. The brain is already taken up that degree of neuroplastic change. Remember I said that there are 4 types? Functional was within seconds to minutes, hours, seconds to minutes. It's that one. So that means it's synaptic. And then what they do is they reinforce it. So this is just an example of me saying that in the brain skills, the composition starts off with a control interrupt to stop you from doing what you're doing, get your attention. The degree of it in complexity and the degree in time varies whether it's foundation, intermediate, or advanced. Once you've got attention, you introduce the prime attractor. Once you've got the prime attractor and the brain is going, oh, it's the dog in the lamp again? Yeah, you know how the dog always knocks over that lamp and we said we're going to move it. You start to cluster the secondary attractors, so you've got a story that's building. And then as the story is building, you challenge the main characters. You challenge those frequency sets by conflict. You bring in dissonant, conflicting frequencies that test it, that push it. You say, you think you know it? Let's show me that you know it, right? You think you know this tune? Okay, let's flip it to a different key. Let's change the beat a little bit. Let me see if you can bend this tune and stay with it. So I introduce conflict for a period of time. And then back off, and then you get to know more about the character in the movie. You get to know a lot more because they've just been through bad stuff, and now you see their personality reinforced. Are they a good guy or a bad guy? You really get to see it. And then reinforce, loop, 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 loop. It's like, yes, that's true, you got it, I agree, and I'm going to show you that it's the right thing because I'm going to repeat it, and you do the same. You run the chorus again, and run the chorus again, and run the chorus again. Don't even play the rest of the song. Everybody just knows how to sing the chorus. They don't know the rest of the song, but they all know the chorus, right? And then, in the end, you give them a big fat reward. Some real nice, juicy signaling that, I love it. The end of the movie and you clap. This is the nature of what I call the compositional style of signaling the brain that is characteristic of all the brain skill sessions. All 80 of them are like that. Not exactly like that. I'm giving you like the writer's formula in a way, right? But then you can, but you can see, I mean, in some of the worst but effective movies, that's used all the time, especially in like horror stuff, right? Where you're sure that the bad guy is dead, and just when you're relaxed, just when you thought it was safe to go back into the water, there's Jaws again, right? Like, why are these things written like that? Like, they're so. After you've seen a few of the movies, you think, that sucker is still here somewhere, Sigourney Weaver killed that alien bitch, but, I don't know. This is like, we've got 12 more minutes left in the movie. This ain't over, right? And sure enough, and even though you know it, it still works somehow. Why? Because that's the way our brain processes signals. That's the way that's why stories are the way they are. That's why music is the way it is. That's why trance music is only a subset. You can put a person in a state and hold them in the state, but it's not a creative state. It's not an advancing state. It's a substate. The brain doesn't like to stay that simple that long unless you've got some chemicals that are helping them stay there. Otherwise, the brain wants to move. That's why sets, like concerts, they don't just play the same song for 3 hours. It's like, dude, I like the 20-minute version, but really? And that's why there are different songs, and that's also why there are different themes, different feelings at different times, because you've got to tell a story. And why does the concert suck if you don't do that? It's because after the first set of signaling, the brain gets bored. It's like, yeah, I got it. I know that, But, I mean, do you have anything else? Can you do anything else? Otherwise, 2.5 hours is like way too long for your set. You're the opening act for 20 minutes. You've got 4 good ones, and you're out of there. So this is the nature of what we're looking at for the first half of the day today, is how to signal the brain to message the mind so that there's meaningless becomes meaningful, nonsense becomes sense, that you can start to drive a person or help a person learn towards an eventual skill set. You'll see as you spend more time, for those of you that already have the Neurolight, as you get more cognizant of how to use the brain food, how to set the stage with the brain gym, to use the analogy, the opening act could be the brain gym, right? And then the brain skills. Once you learn how to finesse this, you can get people to go to places that they forgot about, that they wanted, but they actually totally forgot that those states existed, or they really wanted, but they don't know how to get there, or they've got a bunch of stuff that is in the way and they can't get it out of the way. You can do that. You can